Hello, everybody. I'm John Locke, and I'd like to welcome you to the LockeInYourSuccess.com Trading Performance Podcast, where it's all about real traders, real problems, and real coaching. Listen up and enjoy the segment.
So a topic I wanted to talk about today was fear of trading this market, right? So some people may come into this market or look at this market and say, it's moving too much, it's completely erratic. The 50 wide butterflies are too small to handle this, whatever story we tend to tell ourselves. Certainly it's also easy to fall into the trap of what's happening in the news and whatever our beliefs are on the macroeconomic front. So all these things can accumulate in our mind and say, you know what, I just don't trust this market. I'm not going to trade it. And I there's huge fallacy in that, right? So really when it comes to fear-based trading, and John, you could certainly speak quite in depth to this.
Steve, just to interrupt you, I apologize.
For sure.
I agree with you a lot on this. And, if you fear trading a market, it means even more that you should be in the market. Now, you don't have to be in the market with a huge size,
right?
But any market, if you ever in your life at some point plan on depending on trading as an income, or doing out and trading full time, or whatever. I mean, unless you're just playing with this as a game and you just want to, you can leave the game anytime you want. You're not, taking trading seriously. You should most definitely be in the market especially if you're having a hard time with the market. Now, you can come in here, you can trade one contract, you can trade in the IWM, you can do, just trade small. In other words, solve that problem that you're having with the marketplace. Whatever it is a solvable problem, and you're not going to solve it by stepping away and waiting till things calm down. Really, that's almost the worst thing you could possibly do. You want to be in the market, you want to be trading it, you want to be learning how to deal with it. Again, you can't be overly focused on results. If you're overly focused on results, you're just not going to do well as a trader in general. You're going to have times when you're going to be making a ton of money, and you're going to have times when it's appropriate to be learning. And now is an appropriate time if you're having a hard time to be learning how to deal with this market. And like I said, the only way to do that is to be in the market. You're going to learn so much. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And that really speaks to, on a higher level, what I was going to address. So, we've outlined some of the reasons why someone might conclude this is, market I don't want to be involved in, but I wanted to check out this quote by Michael de Montaigne, I guess is how you pronounce his name. A man who fears suffering, a man or a woman, anyone, who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. So, let that digest for a minute. If you're afraid of trading in the market, you're already experiencing or actualizing the emotion from the loss that you're afraid of anyway, right? So let me rephrase that. So I'm afraid to be in this market. Primarily, I don't want to lose money, because money creates an emotion, a painful emotion. So that fear, though, you're already experiencing that negative emotion by being afraid. That sort of speaks to what John's saying, right? So yeah, go ahead.
In the life coaching business, we call that failing ahead of time.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, like I always say, guilty as charged. I've been there before. I mean, emotions were human. In trading, we don't suppress them and become robots. We develop self-awareness and management and processes, right? So, it's easy to do, but it's things like that I forget what the quote exactly. It's like suffering is primarily in your imagination. So a lot of the negative emotion.
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Is what I was famous saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so once you kind of internalize that, you say, you know what, by being out of the market, I'm not losing money, but to John's point, you're not gaining any learning. You're in some sense already feeling the negative emotion, because at some point, the negative emotion of the loss that you think you're avoiding, because at some point, this fear of being in the market is going to turn into FOMO. Then you got a cascading effect. Then you get in at the wrong exact time, or you rush your plan, or you don't have a plan, and you get in thinking, man, I thought I was doing smart by sitting out the market, and now I'm in, and you're at the very top, and whatever the case may be, it's just inevitable that's how that happens. So let's talk about a little bit about if you have fear-based trading issues, what are some solutions specific to what we're doing around here? So I know we talk about this on a high level process, but I don't know how many people really have a distinct process and then trust in that process and lean on that process. And John has had a quote in the past that I have on my desk is confidence, not a belief in success. It's a comfort with failure, right? And so really that comfort with failure is that ability to have resilience, right? Where does resilience come from is one main place is going to be trust in a process. You say, okay, Steve, what does that mean? We get that word so thrown around, and I get it. It gets tossed around and abused. Process. Some level of trade planning, right? Like if you're a rules-based trader, then the rules is your plan, but you want to have a little bit more than that. You want to have multiple reasons to exit a trade. It's not just whatever John's doing on Monday webinars. If you're a subjective trader, I know we could all tighten up our trade plans on subjective. I think just spinning up the computer at half hour, an hour before the close and making an adjustment. Some people could do that. I don't think that leads to long-term success, but John may not have always a written trade plan, but I guarantee he's got a 45-page plan in his head for every trade he has on. I mean, think about when he's talking about his trades on these sessions, there's 8, 9, 10 different moves he's thinking about and he's considering on down the road. That's the level of trade planning you might need to have, but certainly it's probably more than we currently have, and not only around executing and managing the trade, but here's one that I think gets left off quite a bit is the trade debrief. And we used to talk about this quite a bit. I think there's a lot of good content in the member side around trade debriefing, but that's where you learn the most because, when you're in the moment and the trade is on and it's during the trading day, you're not in a state of mind to really open up the synapses, as it will, and learn about what's happening with the trade. It's after the market's over. Maybe it's on the weekends or in the evenings, and really just looking at how you trade the trade. Did you always make good decisions? You don't have to spend 8 hours on it, but at least look at the trade and say, had I done X instead of Y, what would the downstream impact have been, and would that really have mattered? What did I miss? What were my blind spots? Some kind of process to learn, right? To identify an issue, learn from it. Identify an issue, learn from it. I mean, I think especially as subjective traders, it's easy to get away with that because we can convince ourselves, oh, I'm free flow. I'm just free flow. I open up the computer and whatever it's there, I do. And yeah, I mean, that has its place, but if you've got fear-based issues, you can't do that.
No,
you can't do that.
You can't do that with that.
And that is what I have for you today. If you have any questions or comments or anything else you'd like to see in the next Trading Performance podcast, please list that in the comments and I'll personally answer your questions and comments for you. Also, I'd love to encourage you to come on over to lockeinyoursuccess.com. That's LOCKE in yoursuccess.com, and check out our Trading Performance and Pro memberships, where you can find the tools you need to become a much more effective trader, regardless of the type of trading you do. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you on the next Trading Performance podcast.